All right, so we're going to begin our lesson on the periodic table. Before you begin taking a look at the video, make sure you have a blank periodic table in front of you, colored pencils or colored markers. Take a look at the periodic table and you look at the vertical columns, you'll see that there are 18 total groups. However, when we use the numbers to identify groups on the periodic table, we use in Roman numerals, and we use those Roman numerals to identify the 8 main groups. And so the 8 main groups are group 1, which is called the alkaline metals. Group 2 is called the alkaline earth metals. We then have main group 3, main group 4, main group 5, main group 6. And then when you get to group 7 is known as the halogens. Group 8, those are your noble gases. So you are only responsible for knowing the name of groups 1, 2, 7, and 8. Those are the alkaline metals, alkaline earth metals, halogens, and noble gases. And then when we look at groups 3, 4, 5, and 6, we refer to this as the boron family, the carbon family, nitrogen family, and oxygen family. All right? And then right here in the middle of the periodic table, we have the transition metals. We have 7 periods on the periodic table. Those periods are horizontal rows. Now, most of the elements on the periodic table are metals. So there's this imaginary line that's on the periodic table that separates the metals, which would be on the left, from the non-metals. And then the elements that are touching the zigzag line, those are called metalloids. Metalloids are elements that have properties of both metals and non-metals. Now, when you look at the most reactive metal and the most reactive non-metal, those elements are francium and fluorine. Francium is at the lower left of your periodic table. Fluorine is at the upper right corner of the periodic table. These are the 2 most reactive elements on the periodic table. Francium being the most reactive metal and fluorine the most reactive nonmetal. Elements within the same group have similar chemical properties. So all the elements in group 1 have similar chemical properties. Elements in the same group also have the same number of valence electrons. Elements in the same group have the same charge. And then elements in the same period have the same number of. So as we look at the periodic table, which has identified the main groups for you, want to take a look now at valence electrons, charges, and chemical properties. So elements within the same group will have similar chemical properties. So all the elements in group 1 have chemical properties that are similar. The elements in group 2 will have chemical properties that are similar. The same thing for groups 3 through 8. All the elements within the same group will have similar chemical properties. So for example, lithium has similar chemical properties to sodium. But if we compare lithium and beryllium, those 2 elements do not have similar chemical properties because they are in different groups. Taking a look at the right side of the periodic table, fluorine and chlorine have similar chemical properties because they're in the same group. However, fluorine and neon do not have similar chemical properties because they are not in the same group. They are in different groups. Now we can also take a look using the same information in front of you. If we look at valence electrons. Valence electrons are electrons in the outermost energy level. So when you look at the group number tells you how many valence electrons each element in that group has. So if you look at sodium, sodium has 1 valence electron because it's in group 1. If you look at boron, Boron has 3 valence electrons because it's in group 3. Fluorine has 7 valence electrons because it is in group 7. Argon has 8 valence electrons because it is in group 8. The exception to this rule is helium. While helium is in group 8, helium only has 2 valence electrons. Okay? Now, we also need to look at charge, or the oxidation number. All of the elements in group 1 have a positive 1 charge. In group 2, they have a positive 2 charge. Group 3, they have a positive 3 charge. Now when we get to group 4, the elements in group 4 have a negative or a positive 4 charge. So the difference is, if it is a non-metal, it tends to have a negative charge. If it is a metal, it will have a positive charge. So non-metals are going to be negative 4, metals will be positive 4. The elements in group 5, now we're going to go backwards and we're going to do negative 3. Elements in group 6 will have a negative 2 charge. In group 7, they will have a negative 1 charge. And then the charge of elements in group 8 is 0. They don't have a charge. They're neither positive or negative. All right, taking a look at this last bit of information, we need to look at elements within the same period, making sure that we know when they're in the same period, they have the same number of energy levels. So now if we compare lithium and sodium, again, lithium and sodium have the same number of valence electrons, but they have different number of energy levels. Lithium will have the same number of energy levels as beryllium. Comparing fluorine and neon, fluorine and neon have the same number of energy levels, but a different number of valence electrons. Comparing nitrogen and oxygen have the same number of energy levels, but they will have a different number of valence electrons.